Yes, my Lords, I rise to speak to my amendments 188, 190 and 192 in my name on the marshalled list. Now, I welcome the broad thrust of empowering and reinvigorating the development corporations contemplated in the legislation. I mean, this is the best part of a complex bill, in my view, although we now learn it has already been overtaken by the devolution bill launched in the other place. Now, Clause 94 seeks the achievement of sustainable development and the mitigation of and adaptation to climate change. But there will be no sustainable development without commercially sustainable financing of the proposals that the corporations bring forward. So my amendment seeks to bring sustainable finance alongside those of other sustainability issues. Now, I approach this subject in the knowledge that local authorities may be reorganised, that mayors be created in what we now learn to be a cat's cradle of overlapping and competing responsibilities. But regardless of that, the day-to-day financial pressures felt by national and local government has never been greater. Now, in a former time, development corporations would simply hold out their hand to the government or local councils for funding, and of course that route may still be open. But we need to recognise that the old ways with joint severability between various tiers of local government is falling away. And building new towns is the work of generations. It goes beyond political cycles, and relying on national and local politicians will not be enough in a world where building a secondary school costs 40 million and a flyover at 100. So in the pursuit of sustainable development and delivery on the plans, the money needs to be right, because without the money, how can all the desirable options in Clause 95 be delivered? So we need to give the development corporations powers to exploit the difference between funding and financing, and by explanation, funding is writing the cheque, but financing is putting the deal together. And it's no surprise that it's the financiers in the City of London who are the highest paid, because their task is the hardest, turning those good ideas into reality. Now, development corporations are independent, but they do have the benefit of being able to lean on the covenant strength that comes from being a statutory body. And I will not dwell too much on the significance of the governance of development corporations, but I will make the factual observation that strong governance leads to higher covenant strength, the ability to take a higher credit rating, and the willingness of institutional investors to pony up the cash. And we need to make it easy for development corporations to raise funds in new and creative ways at the lowest possible coupon. My amendments will pathfind those. So getting this right, and we provide investable opportunities for pension funds that desire to invest in infrastructure bonds, for local people who want to invest in local facilities that benefit area, and from sovereign wealth that seeks a home for their money within an advanced economy with well-defined property rights. But the well of wealth from these sources may not be enough, and there may be other ways to skin the cat. The corporations need to be empowered to engage in all manner of financial instruments, including the traditional issuance of bonds, debt, or similar financial instruments. But we should contemplate other sources of finance. And that extends, in my view, to entering into joint ventures with landowners, perhaps, whose land is to be incorporated as an in-kind contribution to the whole, so they may enjoy the uplift over a long period rather than cash up front. It shouldn't be right that development corporations feel they need to reach for the CPO lever by default and then have to be forced to pony up a premium price up front to the owner after the unpleasantness of the process. Lots of P's in there. And in other words, development corporations need to have the powers not just to assemble land, but be creative in the assembly of that land. And the creative concept of the joint venture would allow more money to be spent on upfront infrastructure than on land acquisition. And that's a better value enterprise. By thinking creatively like this, the amount of upfront funding will be less, and the ability to deliver essential infrastructure at the outset will be greater. So I want to place finance in its widest possible context, not just rooting out the sort of funding where you stand on the street corner with your hand out. Let's see these standalone corporations away from the other financial pressures that afflict local government, and free them from the apron strings of those local authorities. So, whilst I accept that development corporations can plan for an area and have regard to all manner of undesirable outcomes contemplated in clause 93, ultimately those plans or outcomes will stand or fall on whether the money can be raised and the finance deals put together, and that's what my amendments seek to achieve. I beg to move.